Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, or whatever time zone it is, whether you're in the world. It is your Lore Saviour. On a recent video, I had talked about an ongoing world event, shall we say, that has sort of bled into my TTRPG experiences. And you may agree or disagree with anything that I said in that video. I don't really care. I was just asked my opinion of something and I gave it wholeheartedly. But the topic of bleeding things into one area of life into another, I thought this was a wonderful opportunity to talk about bleed within the TTRPG sphere, which is something for the last few years I've been kind of aware about, but it sort of came to the surface a lot more with the discussions and controversy surrounding the V5 book, Bloodstained Love, or whatever it's called, where it encourages people to pursue bleed and all the negativity that surrounds that, and there's quite a bit of buzz on TikTok, basically people saying that actually this is a really fucking shit idea, and the book also going on to lengths saying that if you don't pursue romance and these sorts of themes, you can just play like this sort of like edgy, emotionless loner, which isn't a great image to have really. You know, if you're asexual, for example, or your character is like not wanting to pursue like certain sexual lustful desires is not you being edgy, that's just the way that you fucking are. So, what is bleed exactly? Well, as I kind of alluded to with my opening introduction, the concept of bleed is that when you're playing a TTRPG is that when certain things happen, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, that one set of emotions can bleed from your fictional characters into the real world stuff. Like, an example of that would be, like the romance stuff, for example. There's some real iffy stories out there about, you know, characters are being like lustful, cheeky, flirtatious, whatever. The person, they start to feel things to the other and take things a bit too far. Or like read, you know, the room badly and get mixed signals or whatever, and it'd be difficult for said individuals to cut off the emotions from one set from another. That's just an example. Another example would be from my own experiences, is that when I was playing Iron Sworn for the very first time, which is a solo TTRPG with a sort of like Nordic low fantasy vibe going on there, you have like these different trait card things that you assign with your character. I think they're called perk cards, I don't exactly remember. And I had an animal companion, and I thought it would be really funny to have this big old fucking mammoth. And it just so happened that I was rolling particularly badly and the mammoth died. And that kind of hit me in a way that I didn't quite expect it to, because usually I'm quite good at divorcing like TTRPG emotions and human emotions, but the death of this animal and what I was doing sort of like hit me in a way I didn't quite expect. And I kind of needed a little breather a little bit just to detach myself from the situation, just to collect myself, which to some people might sound silly because it's all just make-believe, it's just a game, but games and films and media and all the rest of those sort of things are designed to tell a story, to facilitate and to get certain reactions from the viewers, to feel certain things. So of course naturally on a film, if something similar happened, people would feel upset, angry, whatever. These are just natural human emotions. But where the conversation of bleed starts to become a bit more important is that it can affect your life in a lot of other ways. Perhaps negatively, sometimes positively, but the concept of bleed is usually an emotional thing. Like, again, like the whole like romance thing. Like, if somebody shows that they're not interested in real life, you should not take that too personally because you're letting your emotions like cloud your judgment, sort of thing. Or if two characters have a fight because the characters disagree on something, it does not mean that one person hates the other and vice versa. And it can be difficult to manage emotions and expectations, I suppose. Now, I'm describing all of this as sort of like vague, nebulous vocabulary because it's not something that I personally have had a lot with as a player, partly because I haven't been a player for a lot of TTRPGs. I'm mostly the games master, and also for the most part I'm very good at divorcing my emotions from TTRPG to real stuff, because as I've touched upon before in other videos, I don't have that much emotional investment in my characters. I would obviously get upset or annoyed if somebody was died or hurt or something bad were to happen, but that is just sort of the nature of TTRPGs to me. But as I often say in games that I'm about to run, or the actual plays that I've done, just because one thing is alright one day doesn't necessarily mean that something's going to be alright another day. Like the animal example, I don't give a flying fuck most of the time what happens to in-game animals because they're not real. And I just don't really give a shit, but it was just for whatever reason, I don't know whether it was to do with the mental state that I was in, or it was just from what I was describing, or whatever that may well be, it just sort of hit me in the gut a bit differently. And this can also be related to things that are more traumatic for people on a day-to-day basis. To use a couple of examples of mine that I don't mind talking about, if we have a look at the traditional green, yellow, red sort of thing, like green's okay, yellow maybe with caution or with some warning, and red's absolutely no. I don't have many red things provided it's handled with care, so really basically everything I do is a fucking yellow line, just because it's dependent on the people and the games master, I suppose. But one thing is like a hard yellow thing is like anything involving alcoholism, drug addiction and self-harming. That's the sort of upbringing I've had, I guess. But regarding the drug addiction and alcohol stuff, like, I don't have a problem really of that being discussed. I just want it to be handled with care, and depending on how I'm feeling on a certain day, I'll be absolutely fine, or I'll just wince up a little bit and be a bit on edge. Now, with me, I know that people aren't going to do things to, you know, provoke me or get a fucking rise out of me, and I wouldn't join a group where somebody would want to do that deliberately or otherwise. So, you know, because I'm a mature adult in some regards, and able to make good decisions like that. The self-harming one is a little different. That's like, let's treat that as orange, you know, because it's a bit more red. I know that there's certain elements in horror where that sort of thing will come up, particularly the vampire, with a lot of like the Tremere thaumaturgy, particularly that with V5, which is fine. Again, I'll just wince up. If I know it's coming, I'll be alright, but it's something that I just struggle to deal with, but at the same time, I don't think that if people were to employ that around me, I knew they'll be deliberate about it. Now, it could be a case-by-case scenario where I think someone is trying to get a rise out of me about it, and then I'll do the adult thing and have a conversation about it. Or if I felt particularly aggrieved by it, I'll just say, you know what, this isn't for me, I'm just going to drop out and find some other game. Which is sort of the whole thing I've been dancing around with, I feel, a little bit, or alluding to. I don't know how well that's come across, but it's fucking crystal clear now. That really, at the end of the day, how much or little you want to be chasing emotions and feelings like that. And you also have to remember that with horror games in particular, you're not so much wanting to scare the characters, but you're also trying to elicit fear out of the players. So you do want them to feel that fear and to feel that something dreadful is going to happen, both to their character and to themselves, to an extent. Right, we're not wanting to inflict trauma here, we're just wanting to elicit a fearful response, or a jump scare, or gross them out, or some other form of dread, you know, because horror covers a huge fucking spectrum here, which I believe Bleed encompasses a little bit, but it's not something to be chasing after. It's not something that you should be deliberately harming the mental health of yourself and others over for. I think there's a fine line that we're treading here that I think that hopefully we all now understand what I'm trying to get at. But going back to the original point before I got distracted, it all requires communication. And some people on some certain days may want to feel those certain emotions, like they want to chase or go after certain themes and things, providing that everybody knows about it and everyone that's okay. Somebody may want to bawl their eyes out a particular emotion scene, to which I say let them, providing it's not hurting or upsetting anybody else. Because if handled correctly, getting these emotions out of players can be a really cathartic feeling as somebody who has run a horror game and just let players roleplay interactions out and, you know, had people at the point of tears because they were just so engaged with the setting, the character, and the horror and the traumas that I had inflicted upon them. Their characters, that is, not the players. It was the Walking Dead campaign that I did. I talked about it fairly recently. That's going to appear on a card somewhere. I don't know where that card is now, but whatever. And that was such an awarding thing because I did very little to get that, because this was part of a massive bit of RP towards the end of the session that got them to feel these things, and that to me feels like an awesome feeling. But again, that came about through some conversation, because the players wanted to feel those things. They didn't want me to hold back with descriptions and things, because I've known them for quite some time. They know how much of a fucking horror nut I am, and in some distance they know the sort of work that I do, and they wanted to experience like the full Lore by Night package, which is great, but not everybody may not want to experience those emotions as full on as they did. People may not want to feel so attached to things around them. Again, it's all part of conversation, and not just on the session 0, but beyond there as well, because there's something that I find really distressing with the handling of session 0. I feel that some people seem to think, okay, all that health and safety stuff happens on the first session unless we include aftercare on our discussions. It's like, no, absolutely not. You keep those conversations regarding mental health, etc. and so forth open at all times, and expect things to change on the drop of a hat for the reasons that I talked about just a moment ago. Basically, in summary, this is just another variation of just having strong, clear and open communication at all stages during, before and after your game, just to make sure that everybody is happy and content and is on board about what the sort of experience is. So whether you're somebody that uses all the safety tools and its mother, or you're somebody that doesn't do any and just like, hey, I'm not into any of that sort of stuff, this is basically all things go, you just find out what is and isn't acceptable for you, and you chase or don't chase after anything that's going to upset you in the fucking long run, which sounds like fucking common sense when I put it like that, but the number of times I have seen groups online, and some of my own actually, where things could have been a lot better and sorted out if one or two more of the parties were more clear about what it was that they were after in one way or another. And I know this sort of like leads, or should I say bleeds, into general TTRPG safety advice, partly because that's where I feel a lot of this like carries over. But as I said already, I don't really have a lot of experience with that sort of thing, because a lot of the advice that people have with dealing with that stuff is something that I've always done as a games master long before I know about any of these sorts of things exist. Like, I have a little bit of a chit chat towards the end of a session just to see if everyone's alright. I don't like the signal, okay, this is the chit chat session to make sure that everyone's alright. It's just as everyone's packing up, I'm just checking, like, hey, did you have a nice time? Just socialising, just doing that, you know, social interaction thing that we humans are supposed to be really fucking good at. I say it so haphazardly, I guess, and like perhaps a little inflammatory, but it's just something that I just try and do just to make sure that folks are alright, and you know, it's just a great time just to hear people's concerns. And I said, I don't like signpost it, because from my perspective that sort of puts people on the spot, but the players are excited, going to be talking about the highs, the lows and things they're excited for, and like trying working out what's going on, and you know, talking about role-playing stuff. At the end of each session I also do like a bonus experience point thing where I just get everyone to go around, essentially putting them on the spot and like nominate somebody for a reason, and it could be for a roleplay reason, it could be a bit of combat, it could be anything like that. But again, a lot of it tends to focus on a bit of role-playing and sometimes these reactions to things, and people do talk about how they felt and like those little lines that are being crossed, and I do make sure that people are alright, because I think that's just a fucking decent human thing to do. Now, before I wrap this video up proper, I do want to make it clear that I don't want to make it sound like I'm better than people because I'm saying that these things are easy or it's common knowledge, etc. and so forth, nor do I want to make myself like as a better player because I'm able to cut off these emotions a lot better. I think the cutting off emotions thing and not caring as much, something that I alluded to earlier on to something that I alluded in previous videos, is that I'm more or less the forever GM in these things. So I'm having to play a lot of characters and put on a lot of different hats, so I can't really care all that much about personal characters and things. I care about my players, but not so much about their characters and the NPCs and whatnot. So it's just through practice, really, and experience, and a fair amount of me being a games master is just binging lots of TTRPG content online and just taking in bits of advice here and there and just running games and just learning through practice, which is all it comes down to, really. So if this is stuff that you're struggling with, don't worry, you're going to get there. It just takes a bit of time, that's all. Like, you're not going to get there immediately. Like, don't expect to be like a Brennan Lee Mulligan or Jason Carr or Matt Mercer, which again is something you've heard loads of times before, but again, these things do come up in conversations, and just be yourself, just have those conversations, just keep things open, find out what works and doesn't work for you, and make those cool fucking memories. Now I do know in about 15 or so minutes in this video I've covered on fuck all because my experience with bleed in TTRPGs, that is, has been rather limited. So I think it would be really beneficial if you've reached this point in the video, you share your comments below about experiences that you had with bleed and any advice that you as a player or as a games master have had dealing with that. Good, bad and indifferent. So anybody who stumbles upon this video can have some nice little resources for you to go and follow. And likewise, if you're someone who's inexperienced that's having troubles, go and read those comments and hopefully you'll find the answers to what you're looking for, just more resources and tools for you to fuck about with, or not fuck about with, I suppose, but you get what I mean. If you like this sort of video and all the other sort of horror related stuff that I do, I'd really appreciate if you could check out the links in the description below. Now if you purchase them with those specific links, I get the money back because I'm a affiliate from TTRPG, and that sort of coinage helps the channel no end. Now if you've got those books already or don't like them and want to support me financially another way, what you can do is find the affiliate code that's down there, copy it and paste it into the URL of any drive-through-RPG product before you add it to the cart, and that will be able to help as well, which will be amazing because it means that you get books, I get books, and you get content for free. So really, it's a win-win chicken dinner situation for you, my friends. But if you can't do that, that's absolutely fine. No, times are hard on all of us, and this expensive hobby is only getting more expensive, so I won't hold any grudges or lose any sleep over it if you're not able to do that. But if you can, you'll be absolutely goated and the best amongst the Lore by Night community. But regardless of whether you can purchase things or not, what you should definitely do is give the video a little thumbs up, subscribe to the Lore by Night channel, and share this video with any and everyone who loves what I do. And I'll see you on the next upload, wherever that may well be for you. Until next time, farewell.